Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and I've wanted to do a video on calligraphy for a while, but I just couldn't narrow down what I wanted to do, if I wanted to use felt tip markers, if I wanted to use fountain pens or dip pens. But finally I decided I was just going to pick one, and I decided to go with the old-fashioned style dip pens and explore that and show you just some easy ways to make beautiful lettering with your pens. Now, I am not a calligraphy artist. I just like to dabble with it. So if you're looking for a video on the proper way to practice calligraphy, you probably want to check out somebody else's YouTube channel. But if you want to fake it and you want to have really cute letters that look great with minimal practice and effort, then you have found your video. So let's take a look. Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and today I'm going to show you how to do some basic calligraphy. And I am not a professional calligraphy artist by any means, but I do know how to make some pretty letters, so today that's what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm using dip pen. This is a, I think it's a speedball holder and nib, and you can get these at art stores, and you can get different nibs. These are the ends that you put on the ends of your pen to make different thicknesses of lines. Some of them have little rounded ends for like doing, you know, the fancy script with like kind of the rounded ends, like a copper plate or is that round hand. And some have really wide nibs. It all depends on what type of line you want to make. Here are some fine drawing nibs. They're teeny tiny little points on there. And they are designed to hold ink in your pen. And the reason I like to use the dip pens is that you just feel a little bit fancier and more like an artist when you're using a dip pen as opposed to a felt tip pen or fountain pen. So here I'm using a C1 nib. It's roughly a little less than probably 1/4 of an inch wide. And I like to use India ink, but I'm going to show you something else that's really fun so that you can do some other colors. You can actually load it up with watercolor. Just by, what I like to do is try to get it kind of in between the brass part and the metal part. Make sure I have plenty of water in my paint. This is just regular watercolor. It's a student grade actually. It's Cotman by Winsor Newton. Alright, I've got that pen pretty juicy and loaded up. And now, I'll just make sure I don't have any extra. Now I can go ahead and make a letter, and you're kind of going to be seeing this sideways because I can't turn my hand and write decent. So, but the thing to remember is to keep your pen at a 45-degree angle and always start your letters at the top. And there's actually a little rhyme that my daughters came home singing one day, and it goes something like this. Always start your letters at the top. Always start the letters at the top. When you start a letter, you'll get better, better, better if you always start your letters at the top. It goes to If You're Happy and You Know It, that tune. So you can see just by keeping my pen at a 45-degree angle and starting my letters at the top, I get very nice, neat letters. Now I can switch colors if I wanted to, which is kind of fun if you're doing some art journaling or some scrapbooking and you want to have some really snazzy letters, you want to have a really snazzy title. You can go ahead and try with calligraphy. And the nice thing about using the pens, if you get a splash of color here and there, it's going to look artistic and really nice, and you can loosen up. I find that I'm way more liberated when I use a dip pen like this than if I'm using a marker or a fountain pen. You can just embrace the imperfections of this. Alright, now I'm putting a little turquoise paint here. I'm doing E here. See, you could break down some of them into a couple different strokes so that you get a better look. And see a G, I'm going to do a circle, then I'm going to do the, oh, my kid is calling for me. Hold on one moment. Hopefully I still have some pen in here, some, oops, let me load up my pen again. Just use a brush and then you'll just get out what you need, and it's nice because you don't have to have a big well of ink that's going to go to waste or dry up on you. And if you're unsure whether you have too much ink or not, you can just give it a little shake. There you go, I had a little too much in there. G-H-I, see if I can remember my alphabet while I'm doing this. And I like to just kind of start with a little bit of an upstroke and then kind of pull it down, H-I-J-K. See if I go up a little bit, then I pull down. Oops, I'm getting my my leaning is, see how that doesn't look as neat there because I'm leaning one way on that and I'm leaning the other way on the J. If you try to keep your lines kind of parallel, your letters will look a little nicer. But you know, it's just, you know, some fun lettering for like an art journal or a scrapbook page or a tag or something. So you can really don't think about it too much. Don't get too worried about it. But just some things to keep in mind when you're working so that it looks a little neater. And I'm just going to switch to a little green. Kind of getting, this is the first time I've tried this actually, so I'm kind of enjoying this, and if I kind of space out and stop talking and just get lost in the letters, I will apologize. It's likely to happen. There we go, got a little green on there. Try JKL. And like if you're doing an M, you can just do like a series of downstrokes. Same for an N. An O you would break up into two parts. And a P is kind of like just a straight line with like half a circle. Q, you could do the Q in two parts like that, and then do like that. Or you could do one of those fancy Qs with the squiggles underneath. That's all up to you. Now I'm going to switch to ink, and I do want to get that paint out of there because I don't want to contaminate my pot of ink. And I'm just going to, a lot of times I wipe it with a baby wipe rather than rinse it. But since I wanted to go from paint to ink, I really want to make sure it was clean. Now, if you're going to be done with your pens for the day, I recommend using a hairdryer or a heat gun to really get the water out of it, so you don't end up with rusty pens. Let's see. So I'm going to dip into the ink. QR is our next letter. As you can see, you're just making like your regular printed letters, except you're holding your pen at a 45-degree angle. S you do in 3 strokes. T in 2. See, but just starting with a swoop and swoop, you get that really nice look. I'm running out of ink there. See, I like that little, if you try to keep your whole hand moving as you're going, you get a much smoother letter. T, oops. V, W. See, and see when I'm going that way, because I'm keeping the 45-degree angle, I'm getting a thinner stroke. I like big swoopy letters, and sometimes I'll do that in 2 strokes, and sometimes I'll do it in 1. Just depends what I feel like that day. I know I'm not a professional proper calligraphy, I'm just doing some fun letters. And see. So you can play around with your letters and your numbers. Just remember to keep your pen at a 45-degree angle. So if you're making little bitty marks, it would look kind of like that. Or if you're making mountains, it looks kind of like that. Just so you get an idea of what you can do with just your plain old calligraphy pen. I recommend just buying a pen holder and a few nibs and just having fun with it. Now, this is a fun little project that I'm actually going to be doing with my library craft kids. And you just want to use your pen. And what I did was I carved pens out of bamboo that was just growing around in my parents' yard, and I let them dry out in the sun. And so I carved it so there'd be a fine point on one end and a blunt point like this on the other. And they'll be dipping that into the ink and writing with it. I don't have to worry about proper usage or if they get damaged or anything. So that's kind of what I'm doing with that class for kids. But for here and now, I'm going to show you with my pens. And I'm just going to write the word doodle. Oops, I didn't really leave myself very much room there. L-E, I think it is. Oops, running out of ink. And then if I wanted to switch to a smaller pen, I could. And I could maybe do a little cursive. And I can just make some, doodly marks. And, kind of fun like that. Maybe if this would have been cute if it was cursive and I had kind of those little whoop-de-woos there. And, it's just kind of play around and do some doodly lines. And then I'm going to let that dry and we're going to come back to that in just a minute. And on this tag, I'm just going to write the word read in kind of calligraphy letters here. And I'm going to start with my R. I'm just going to do an R like I would normally. leave space for that D. And I'm going to let that dry, and we'll be back in just a second, and I'm going to show you a really cool resist effect that you can do to dress up your lettering even more. Okay, I'm back. I wanted to show you the little bamboo pens that I made. I just took bamboo and carved them and put a blunt tip on one end and a fine tip on the other. I did it with different sizes just for different effects. So I just wanted to show you that since I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to take some crayons. And these are just, you know, the ones that are on sale for 20 cents a package at back to school time. And I like these rose art ones for this effect because they just seem to be a little glossier and waxier. And I'm just going to go and color in just some of the parts of my tag and just kind of make some abstract little marks, maybe some polka dots, a couple different colors here. Just have fun with it. Just think about what color you might want to add in addition to this when you paint it so that you have some nice contrast. I'm thinking I might use a little green paint, so I'm just going to try to use colors other than green as my resists. And you could take a little more time with this, but I think that kids would really have a good time with this because it's just, you know, no rules, just fun, and it's, you know, the type of thing that kids really love doing. And they're making their own bookmark, which will make them a little bit more inclined to want to do some reading this summer, I'm hoping. And, you know, just have a little fun with it. Don't worry about it. You can't do it wrong. Alright, and well, that's pretty much what I do to this one, the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw some watercolor on this. So I decided I want to use green. Sap green's one of my favorite colors. So you can see how pretty that is when it resists. I can actually turn that your way now. And maybe a little turquoise on there, even though I do have some green. I said blue in there. I thought that would be pretty. Anyway, and while it's still wet, I'm going to use an embossing folder on it to add a little texture. Now it looks pretty like this and you don't have to, but it's just going to give it a little something, something, a little something, something for your tag. A little more green in there. Watercolors always dry lighter. That's just something to remember. Acrylics always dry darker. Watercolors always dry lighter. Just keep that filed away in the old gray matter. And I'm just going to use this. I'm using my little portable die cutter because I'm actually taking that to the kids class with me tonight. So it's out and handy. And I don't like it as much as my Big Shot, I have to say, but it's handy and it, you know, it does the trick. Nothing wrong with it. It works just fine. It takes me a little longer and it wants to dance all around the table on me, but I think it's because I have it on my silicone mat and not on the proper surface. Out of the way with you. Let's open it up to reveal a fabulous texture. And then if you want, you can't really see that too well. If you want, you can go ahead over it with a little bit of more paint and bring out some of that texture. But when I was playing, I had kind of a oopsie tag, a boo-boo, didn't look very good. I decided to experiment a little bit. And actually, let me do that with the reed tag since I got it right here. And instead of doing it, I know I have a towel around here somewhere. I can't seem to find it. Let me just wipe this with a baby wipe. Instead of, I just completely lost my train of thought when I lost my towel. Anyway, so instead of coloring it first, I decided that I would just play with the embossing a little bit. And that's like, I got to dry this. Hold on one second. So anyway, pay no attention to the woman behind the towel. Alright, so I'll emboss it first, and oh, well, let me put that in front of the camera again. Might be slightly more interesting than looking at my dirty silicone mat. This is going to take so much editing. Okay, out of the way with you. So instead of painting it first, I did my texture first, and then I just rubbed it with a piece of wax. Just plain paraffin that I use for candle making. If you have a nice flat area, it works best. And then I just grabbed my watercolors and I went right over it. What color do I feel like using now? Maybe I'll use some reds and oranges. And you get a really pretty resist. The darker colors are going to show up a little better. They're going to have a little more contrast. But but it's so simple and it's so fun, and I think it's, you know, a great way to try out techniques, great techniques to use in an art journal or on a scrapbook page. But if you do it on like tags like this, you can kind of take the pressure off, because if you mess it up, it's no big deal to tag. But, you know, if it turns out awesome, you can always just stick it right in your art journal or scrapbook. So I hope you enjoyed my faux calligraphy for today, and until next time, happy crafting!